Welcome, everybody, to the CFL Weekly Pick'em Show. We are at Week 8. CFL Weekly Pick'em Show is brought to you by Replenishing Care Technologies, GridironMode.com, and Power Plus Mouth Guards. I'm your host for the Weekly Pick'em Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to welcome in my three co-hosts. We'll start off with Brian Schmidt. How you doing tonight, Brian?
You know, I'm alive and kicking, so that's always a good thing.
All right, and, of course, the immortal Oz Davis.
I'm glad you had the decency not to introduce me as the big loser this week, Mike. Thank you very much.
Well, everybody knows you were the big loser last week. I don't even know who was, but we're just going to assume it was you. And, of course, last but not least, the guy that kept me from introducing these three people is the Three Stooges, four-time Grey Cup winner, Robert Drummond. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing pretty good. I have to agree with Brian. Alive and kicking is always a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my football players tonight. He said, I'll just be happy if I wake up tomorrow. I said, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. Let's go ahead and start off with our first game last week. Robert's Toronto Argonauts fell to Calgary 41-24. Ricky Ray's down, but luckily, Robert, they're in the right conference to still be in first place somehow. Do you think there's any way, even with a really good coaching staff, they can piece this together and stay in contention for the title?
I mean, you just look at the difference between the conferences, and the West is such a stronger conference, so it doesn't surprise me at all. But the East right now is anybody can win that conference. Between Ottawa, between Toronto, between Hamilton. I mean, it's an open conference right now, and so they can get Ray back. Before the end of the season, I think they can make some noise, but it's going to be interesting because right now it's a wide open conference because Ottawa has completely surprised me this year. They are not the team they were last year.
No, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, but I think their worst loss was by like 4 or 5 points. So they're not too far away, but after a while, it gets too late to recover, and they're headed towards that part at least.
Yeah.
Brian. Yeah, Brian, you always talk about how Calgary's like the New England Patriots. And just like the New England Patriots, it looks like they're on a roll now. Bo Levi Mitchell, 19 for 24, 249 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jerome Messam, 7.6 yards a carry again. I mean, even with some injuries, this is still – I think this is, for what I've seen, the best team in this league still.
Yeah, they're going to be the best team until they finally decide, they don't want to be that anymore. Look, they always start the season slow. But it seems like right about now is when they start picking up steam and they start really showing that dominance. And I think we're going to see that again, where this is going to be one of those like last year where they went on that huge roll. And I think we're going to see that again.
Yeah, and Oz, what's your take on Calgary? I know we talked about the injuries a while back, and I think it was you that thought maybe they weren't going to be the same team that they'd been in the past. Change your mind at all about that yet?
I'm not sure that was me.
Yeah, it was you, Oz. It was one of you. I don't remember who it was, so I'm going to blame you.
Well, you're certainly.
So defend what you said or didn't say.
Okay, well, I'd like to get you to defend one thing you say. Your continued persistence at putting Bo Levi Mitchell as, at best, the third best quarterback in this league.
I put him at number 2.
Oh, okay. So, all right, good. I'm glad to see he's moving up. Riley's number 1?
He's been number 2 for pretty much the whole time.
Oh, come on. I thought you had Harris at 2.
No, I never had Harris at 2. The highest I've had Harris was 4.
Okay. Anyway, in any case, I thought...
And mine's written. You can look at it, and I can prove it. And I got Mitchell at 2. It doesn't mean I still think there's a couple quarterbacks better, but I don't see how you can not have Riley number 1 right now the way he's played. Especially, they overcome the loss of John White. They've lost a couple other key players, and they're still undefeated. Now, I don't think that's going to last very much longer, but you got to give the guy credit. I think he's played better than anybody else this year. That's why I got Mitchell at 2.
Well, see, I like this game. For Mitchell. Again, if just looking at 249 yards doesn't sound that great, but 19 of 24, 3 touchdowns against 0 picks. That's the thing about Bo Levi is I don't think he's not necessarily a stat monster, but he's Mr. Efficiency.
Yeah, like Tom Brady. Tom Brady will put up big numbers from time to time, but he's not an Aaron Rodgers or a Drew Brees throwing for 400 yards all the time.
Yeah. I mean, no gunslinging, just good, solid connecting with the receivers, of which he connected, I believe, with 9 different guys this week. He's digging up guys that we haven't seen play in 2 or 3 years on a professional level and getting them the ball. It's fantastic stuff. This offense is clicking right now, and I think they are the best team in the CFL.
All right, so Oz, I'll just stay with you. We're going to go ahead and pop over to Winnipeg, 33-30 win over the Ottawa Red Blacks. Red Blacks, as always, had to lead to the end of the game and then blew it. Same thing, and, I mean, we're going to get Robert's take on this, too, because we all had this conversation 3 weeks ago. I know we did, that we didn't think Matt Nichols was the kind of guy that could make the plays to win you possibly a Grey Cup. Second week in a row this has happened. Is this an aberration, or is this something that Matt Nichols can continue to do and make this team a viable Grey Cup competitor?
Well, I could ask you this. Is this the aberration? Through week 5, they had been outscored. The Bombers had been outscored 42-3 in the fourth quarter until last week when they beat Montreal and this past weekend when they came back against Ottawa. I think, I think we are watching the evolution of a team into contender status. They have taken the steps. They have made the personnel changes. They have made the coaching changes. They are overcoming the teams that they used to lose to, finally. And I think, this is a sign that this team is going to go far. I've been on this bandwagon all season. This team is going to go far. This team should be. I expect to see them in the conference finals on either side of this playoffs.
All right, that brings us to the other side of this, the Ottawa Red Blacks. I'll go to Robert here. Robert, you've played on teams that have won Grey Cups. Is this just kind of a Grey Cup hangover for them, or what do you think the problem is here? They're playing well, but just at the end of the games, not getting it done.
You hit the nail on the head. They're playing well, but they're just not getting it done, and that's not the sign of a championship team. I mean, which Ottawa team is going to show up week in and week out? It just put teams away. It's interesting to me from the standpoint because right now, especially no one in the East, they don't fear Ottawa. Whereas last year they ran up and down the field on everyone. This year it's just it's an anomaly. It's an interesting year for them. And until they start, just getting over that hump and putting teams away. Granted, although I think Winnipeg is a very, very good team also. And I think they're going to be in a conference final also. But it's just Ottawa's got to find a way to get it done, and they're not getting it done right now. I mean that's got to be frustrating for their players because they know how good they are, but they're not playing like it when it counts.
Yeah, and Brian, you're a coach. How would you fix this? What do you do? They're talented enough. They're playing well. They're just not getting it done.
That's the thing is they're talented. They're not getting it done. You can analyze what you do in the fourth quarter. Is it, what are we doing? What are we doing? What do we need to change? But I've been, as I've gotten older and all this, I've come to the point that, you continually look for ways to change things. But, at the end of the day, sometimes you're just snake bit and you just have to find a way to overcome it. It's not like they're playing bad. It's not like even they're playing bad in the fourth quarter. They just don't make plays. And the interesting thing for me is last year they made the plays with Burris at quarterback. Now Trevor Harris is a great quarterback, but sometimes the difference between being a great quarterback and an elite quarterback is making the plays when you need to make plays. And maybe he's not there yet.
Remember the first 5 or 6 games of the season last year, he did make those plays.
Yeah.
And then Burris got there, and they didn't make the plays until the end of the season when all of a sudden they made the plays again.
But we also know that football is a what have you done for me lately sport, and it's not happening right now. So there's a lot. You can do a lot of, watching film, looking, what can we do differently? But this is tough. It's easier, when you're not playing well, because you can look at it and go, okay, we're not playing well. Is it personnel? You know, is it coaching? Is it play calling? You can do that, but when you're playing well and this is happening, it's hard because you look around the room and everybody, and Mike, you and I have been there, where you just look at each other with a blank stare going, what the heck is going on? And
speak for yourself, Brian. I always knew what was going on.
Yeah, see,
I knew when we were screwed.
I knew he wasn't going to let that one go. I knew he wasn't going to let that one go.
Yeah,
I screwed, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've been in that room with you. Pass another beer.
Yeah.
So that's where they're at right now. And it's fortunately, you have time for things to change, but it's got to start soon. You can't keep losing games like this and expect to be a playoff team, much less a Grey Cup team.
All right, that brings us to the Edmonton Eskimos' 33-28 win over the Hamilton Tiger Cats, which the Ticats, Caleras, finally played well. They actually played well as a team. I'll go to Robert first. I mean, Robert, I'm sure even though you played a lot of football, you've probably never been beat 60-1. But the thing that was impressive here to me was the fact that this team, even though you had to fight on Monday, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing, they kind of came together and they played their asses off this weekend. And that's hard to do after you get manhandled the way they did there. And I think the team at least showed some character, and maybe this isn't all the head coach's fault.
It's not all the head coach's fault, and some of the blame has to be, it has to fall on the players also. I think the worst I've ever got beaten before was in college once. I think I lost 41-14, and that stung. To lose by 60 points. I mean, self-doubt starts to creep in about how good you actually are as a professional athlete. And when self-doubt starts creeping in, that's a bad omen for any team or any player. It's for me. I always try and look at the body language, of the players, how they're moving, because I can tell a lot by that. Even as a player when you're on the field, you can tell a lot by somebody's body language if they're into this game, if they doubt themselves, if they feel that they can beat you. And right now, Hamilton is just at the point where, yes, it's getting a little better, but it's frustrating to watch. You don't like to see that in any athlete. And I consider them all my brothers because we all go to the same battle every day. I just happen to do mine a little earlier than these young guys now, but it's frustrating to watch talented players not perform to their capabilities.
All right, Brian, what's the worst you've ever been beat?
Oh, worst ever been beat was us against Louisville when our centers went down. I think that's the worst we ever got beat.
I don't even remember the final score. Was it like 72-28 or something?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's where
hard.
Schmidt's offense gave up more points than my defense did because we had two centers go down, and we actually snapped the ball, Robert, over the quarterback's head 5 times for touchdowns.
Yeah.
5 times for touchdowns?
Yeah, arena football game, indoor football game. It's a 50-yard field, and our quarterback got to the point where he would just walk off the field and not even try to cover the ball.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't
in Louisville too, which is a Big East school. I just figured to bring that up.
Wow.
I thought what was more interesting about Hamilton is the fact that they hired June Jones and they just fired a defensive coordinator. So kind of interesting where the changes are going on in Hamilton.
Can I get in on that? Because, Mike, I got to disagree with you halfway. I like what the offense did in this game for Hamilton, but the defense was brutal. I mean, honestly,
the defense is always going to suck because their DBs are terrible. I'm just saying that at least they showed some fight and didn't lay down because after the 60-1, I mean, if you tanked it, you're going to get beat that bad again because Mike Riley can do that to you.
But look, here's the thing. Okay, all right, let's talk about this. You want to talk about the secondary, but it's not about the secondary. Going into this game, they were talking about, Simone Lawrence, John Schick are back. Those two and Ted Laurent are going to dominate. Together they had 7 tackles. They didn't get a single sack. These guys allowed Ladarius Perkins is the guy's name. Ladarius Perkins to go for 105 yards. This dude played on NFL practice squads for 3 years. The last time he was playing professional ball was in the Fall Experimental Football League. I believe that they were 0 of 4 on 3rd and 1. I believe that Edmonton converted all 4 3rd and 1s. Mike Riley runs in 2 touchdowns. They couldn't stop the goal line stand. And you could see it from the go in the first quarter. In the first quarter, Edmonton had 22 plays. 14 of those were 1st and 10. They were just letting him march. They were letting him march. Well, the point here is that, this defense has problems well beyond the secondary, and maybe it was time for the defensive coordinator to go today.
I don't think the defensive coordinator is the problem when your players aren't good enough.
Well, this is a team that supposedly entered this season with 8 guys on the top 50 CFL players list. Okay, they've got the players.
Yeah, but how many of those were offensive players?
Well, okay.
Come on. They're still scoring points except for last week. But when you can't stop anybody. They're scoring now. But I think this. I think also that when you have a defense that gives up points almost every drive, it puts a ton of pressure on your offense to do the same thing. And I think it hurts your offense, especially your quarterback, who may force some stuff he normally wouldn't force.
Well, like I say, I like the offense this week. I thought they were fine for Hamilton.
Yeah, just totally ignore what I said. That's all right.
Defense is brutal. I noted it.
I must have been right since you ignored what I said. But
you are. You're right, Mike.
All right. Well, let's just end that discussion on that because that's my favorite way to end discussions. All right. The next game, we had the BC Lions 30, the Saskatchewan Roughriders 15, and it was not as close as the score, Brian. Is there any controversy quarterback-wise when Jonathan Jennings is ready to go the way Lule has played?
I don't think so right now. I think you got to go with the hot hand. Jennings hasn't proved himself. He's been a good quarterback, but he hasn't proved himself to be, again, when you talk about elite status, good quarterbacks, he's not an elite guy. And, Lule's playing well. You got to go with the hot hand right now, I think.
All right, Robert?
I'd say you definitely have to go with the hot hand, especially in football. Football is a game of momentum, and they're getting to the point of the season where, what is it, week 8, week 9, where it's a halfway point. And I always said the halfway point is going to decide or make or break your season. And that's where you're going to separate yourself even mentally in a game. I remember back-to-back years, 96, 97 in Toronto, where we went 15-3, and we would get to the halfway point, and we would always tell ourselves, it's like, we know we're an elite team. We know we have an elite quarterback. We have an elite running back. We have elite receivers. We have an elite defense. We were the status quo of the CFL, so we knew we had to, put our foot down and separate ourselves away from the pack. And until teams start doing that, they're going to get the best from every team week in and week out. I think BC, with Jennings, I don't think he's an elite quarterback, as you said, but I think he's capable of rallying that team and just getting them to the point where they believe, they can win the West. The West is very, very tight, a tight race right now. And if a team gets 2 or 3 victories, ahead of the others, BC gets a 2 or 3 game lead, or Calgary or Edmonton, it's going to be tough, and mentally, it's going to start frustrating those other teams.
All right, so the question now, Oz, we'll give you Saskatchewan. Kevin Glenn has played fairly well most of the year, 19 for 27, 186 yards, 70% completion. Doesn't sound bad until you look at the 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Brandon Bridge, 6 for 6, 114, 2 touchdowns, even though it's in basically garbage time. I know a lot of Rough Rider fans want them to switch to Bridge, and I think Kevin Glenn is there basically as a stopgap until they get their next quarterback anyways. Do you think they go with Brandon Bridge now? Do you think they should, or should they stay with Kevin Glenn?
Well, okay, the thing you have to remember about Glenn this season is, aside from last week, the majority of his yards are smoke and mirrors because he's getting them all from yards after the catch. He's hitting guys, and they're extending plays. Look, he passed for 186 yards. That sounds bad already. 118 of those are after the catch. He's completing passes for, 68 yards? That's not a lot on 27 attempts. That's not a lot. He's not throwing for distance anymore. Brandon Bridge is a good start for being the sentimental favorite, being a Canadian and everything. The home crowd would like it. And I think Saskatchewan, as depressing as they've been, is pretty much doomed to finish fifth in the West. So they could do it for the fan interest. But, even pragmatically, I think in Saskatchewan you're going to sell out anyway. Those fans love that team no matter how bad they are, no matter who's starting at quarterback. So
all right, I want to bring up the fact that just recently it was announced that the Hamilton Tiger Cats have parted ways with defensive coordinator Jeff Reinbold.
Yes. So. Yeah, it was rumored earlier today, which is weird. You don't see that often in the CFL where they rumor it before they actually fire the guy. But
yeah, he's looking for a job. All right, let's go ahead and pick this next week's games. Hopefully Oz won't be last like he normally is. But we're going to start off with Oz, the Edmonton Eskimos at the Ottawa Red Blacks on Thursday night.
Okay, it's not quite time for the Red Blacks to go on that 10-game winning streak that I predicted for them. So let's see. What else do we know about the Eskimos? Brandon Zylstra was injured in the last game, and I haven't heard anything about whether he's going to be back or not. Now, he's been Mike Riley's favorite target all year. They've got 3 or 4 guys coming off the DL this week, including Colin Kelly on the offensive line. And they actually released Tony Washington just a few hours ago. He had been the starting right tackle, and so they just let him go. So it's hard to say who Edmonton's going to bring out there, but the way Edmonton's losing lately, I'll take Edmonton away for the win.
Yeah.
All right. Robert?
I just think Mike Riley's playing like an MVP, candidate, so far this year, and he has all the momentum in the world, all the confidence in the world. The best record in the CFL, and it's just that there's nothing. They don't fear Ottawa. They know they're the better team. They know they should beat Ottawa, and with the way Riley's been playing and just maneuvering that offense, and they'll have no problem with Ottawa.
Mr. Schmidt?
I'm going with Edmonton. You got to go with the hot team and the hot quarterback in this situation, I feel. That they are definitely that. So I'm going with Edmonton.
All right. I'm going with Ottawa. I think the Red Blacks win the game. Brian, Toronto at Montreal. Remember, I'm the one that picked the Red Blacks when they win this game.
Yeah. I am going with Montreal in this. Much as I really want to go with Toronto, I just with the quarterback situation, I'm going to go with Montreal to win this game.
All right, I'm going with Montreal also. Oz?
There's not even a line on this game at the sportsbook yet because we don't know if Ricky Ray is going to play. The word is that he probably will be. Officially, he's day-to-day, but this game's on Friday, and today is, Monday, and we don't know. So, wow. I'm going to be a homer, though. I guess I'll go with Montreal. I mean, this is a key game. This game is important for the East race right now. So,
all right. Robert, Toronto at Montreal.
As I said, Ricky Ray is day-to-day, but you know what? I'm going to be different. I'm going to go with Toronto. I just feel regardless of Ray plays or not, they just find a way to get it done, and until he gets back, because he's not out for the season. He's day-to-day, so that's a good thing for Toronto. So psychologically, like I said, I was big in the psychology of football games whenever I played. If a player was out, other players had to step up. Man goes down, it's a game of football. You have to step up and outperform the next person, the next game. So I'm going to go with that philosophy, and hopefully they can get it done.
All right, next game we got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I'm going with Winnipeg. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I'm going with Winnipeg. I like how they're playing right now.
Robert?
I'm got to go with Winnipeg. I almost go with Hamilton, for this year. I mean, the whole.
They're bound to win a game some point.
Yes, their due factor, but I can't see them beating Winnipeg. Not right now.
All right, Oz.
Not without a defensive coordinator.
No.
I'll take Winnipeg this week. Yeah, sure.
Oz, they'll probably hire one. They probably already have one.
Do you think it's enough time, though? I mean, you guys are coaches. Do you think it's enough time? I mean,
yeah,
they got
moved a linebacker coach in or something.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Because Ken Austin's an offensive coach, so it's not like he's going to take it over, I don't think. So, at least I assume he is, and I think he was a quarterback in college. Did everybody get to pick that Titanic struggle? Winnipeg and Hamilton. What? Why is that funny? It's a Titanic struggle. I'm a Reds fan. When I used to listen to Marty and Joe on the radio back in the 70s and 80s when it was a blowout, Marty'd welcome everybody back to this Titanic struggle. Next game, we get a rematch of BC kicking Saskatchewan's ass. So I'm going to go with BC. Robert?
I'll go with BC also. I mean, I think just Saskatchewan has too many problems, and BC's are starting to find their stride. I mean, the West. It's going to be interesting to see what the West come down to, especially the next 4 or 5 games. The next 4 or 5 games will tell a lot, especially for the Western Conference, because someone's going to separate from that pack.
All right, Oz?
Yeah, over in the East, too. We're going to start seeing some separation in the Eastern side, too, I would expect.
No, we won't. They're all going to stay at like 5-11 for the entire year. Somebody's going to win a tiebreaker to get in.
They're going to say the same.
Yeah.
They're not TJ.
If I take BC, that means I have 3 visitors this week out of 4 games, but I just can't pick the Riders. I'm going to go BC.
Well, if you would have picked Ottawa, and I guess you didn't pick 3 away teams, did you?
Yeah, Montreal.
BC. But I mean, 2 of them are playing Hamilton and Saskatchewan, so they're not really away teams. They're playing the 2 worst teams in the league. Any final words, Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to take BC. That's my final word.
Did.
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
But now I did.
Well, hell, do you want a final word to go with it?
Well, no, not really. I'm good today.
All right. Well, I'm glad. Now I feel bad because I skipped it. What are you laughing at, Oz? You got any final? I know Oz has got some final words. It'll probably be a 20-minute diatribe on something, but go ahead, Oz.
No, really? All I was going to say is don't get off the Blue Bombers horse, man. That's a good team. All
right. Robert?
I just said you asked me at the beginning of the season, at almost the halfway point, what the teams would have looked like. I would have never, predicted this scenario. I mean, Winnipeg's a much improved team. I would have thought Hamilton would be where Hamilton is, but I definitely would have thought Ottawa would be where they were. And Toronto with an outside shot of winning that division. I thought Calgary would be the undefeated team, and Edmonton would be. I just would have never picked it. It'll be interesting to watch. I always say the halfway point.
And I think Robert, I think Montreal can win the East.
They can. The East is wide open right now.
Of course, anybody can win the East, but
yes, the East is wide open right now. I mean, as I said before, Ottawa has not established himself. They haven't, and teams know they can beat them now. Once you spill blood in the water for a football player, a football team, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I keep expecting them to win 5 or 6 games in a row and take it over, but the longer this goes, a couple more weeks, and that's going to be too late.
Yeah, way too late.
But, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. I want to remind everybody they can come back and check us out every Monday night on the CFL Weekly Show. You go to The Grueling Truth. Check out thegruelingtruth.net for all our articles. Today we put up the top 9 quarterback power rankings for this week. We've got the power rankings for the teams that came out yesterday. Want to remind everybody to check out our sponsors, Power Plus Mouth Guards, Gridiron Mow, and Replenishing Care Technologies. I almost forgot that one, Oz.
Yeah, don't forget that one.
I forget a lot of stuff, but I remembered it at the end. Remember, you can check us out on iHeart, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Music. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. Make sure you go to iTunes and download the Grueling Truth app. So for Robert Drummond, Brian Schmidt, Oz Davis, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends